you to Mr. Toledo. Next, and backing the idea of self-determination and independence, let me invite to the lectern Leslie Riddoch, who is a leading journalist in Scotland and a long-time supporter of Scotland's independence movement. Leslie.
Thank you for letting me be part of this debate. It feels a little bit like interference. Scotland is a long way from here, even further than Brussels. And yet, what happens in Catalonia and Spain will have ripples around the whole of Europe and will certainly reach us. I'm a supporter of the Catalans' right to self-determination through a legal referendum. It's not difficult from our perspective to see why that is a good way to resolve a political dispute. There are two similarities between Scotland and Catalonia. The most important one is that the Scottish government was elected with a mandate to have an independence referendum in 2011. So obviously it moved towards having one. And the Catalan government is in exactly the same position. It has a mandate to pursue this. The big difference, of course, and it's a difficult thing for a supporter of Scottish independence to say this, but the UK did pretty well. The UK decided that it would meet the Scots straightforwardly, not hide behind legal issues, not hide behind constitutional niceties, but it would take the political challenge head on, and it set up the Edinburgh Agreement, which meant that the referendum that followed was legally binding on both sides. Now, you could say also that the leaders of the time were both gamblers. It went on to be clear that David Cameron was sometimes a gambler who lost. And so was Alex Salmond, the Scottish leader. But they decided that it was a political issue that needed to be resolved that way. And from a distance, it looks so clear that this is exactly the same. Of course, there's a second reason for Scotland that this is important, what's happening with Catalonia, because the Scots could be back. You may know that we were told during the referendum that the only way to be members of the EU, to continue being members, was to vote no, to stay within the United Kingdom. Well, actually, that was a bit of a laugh. As it turned out, it was exactly the opposite. And in fact, your Prime Minister, Rajoy, who was very instrumental in scaring people about the possibility that Scotland would not be a member if it was an independent country, backed the wrong horse. The right horse, if you are a European, if you believe in the European ideals, so do the Scots. We voted 62% to stay in Europe. The rest of Britain, principally that large country to our south, the dear English, they voted almost exactly the other way. And that's a point. There is a feeling that big is beautiful, that the big states are what really defines Europe. Actually, the small countries, the small nations, like Catalonia, like Scotland, we are believers. We believe in the European ideal. And actually, sometimes you wonder why. This is a small warning for the European Union. It's beginning to look as if the EU doesn't do small. First Greece, now Catalonia, and the warnings that happened with Scotland, it may not disturb those large states to think that small countries are now losing faith, but times are changing, and the EU needs to catch up. If you look at the other example that is close to my heart as someone who grew up in Northern Ireland, direct rule is never successful. 3 periods of direct rule in Northern Ireland achieved nothing whatsoever. So I would simply say, this is political, please a political solution, and please to everybody, believe big is not just beautiful some of the time, but we have a problem when we have big being presumed to be democratic all of the time.
All right. Okay.